there, friends and RC family. My name is Alec from High Noon Hobbies, and if you're new to this channel, I very much appreciate you checking it out. I hope you will stick around, at least watch this video, see if this content seems worth your while, and then consider subscribing so that I can say to you, if you aren't new here, welcome back to yet another Friday upload. This time we are back out at the beautiful desert mountain in the central Utah region, bringing together the northern and southern drivers for the North vs. South Utah RC Crawling Championship 2023, the second annual. Now, as promised, this week, we're going to have a slightly different style of content. Well, I suppose the style of the content is going to essentially be the same. We're still going to be taking a look at a run, but we are going to be taking a look at a different style of truck. We are going to be taking a look at some MOA. I unfortunately didn't record a ton of footage of MOAs throughout the weekend for this second annual North vs. South Crawling Championship, but I did manage to capture all 5 of the top 5 runs for the MOA finals. So we're going to be taking a look chronologically, I believe. Let me know if I'm wrong. If I'm running in reverse order, that could also be the case, but I think I'm running chronologically here in terms of the first to the last of the top 5 in the order that they went. If you're unfamiliar with an MOA vehicle or an MOA truck, MOA stands for motor on axle. You can look it up and find out a lot more than I'm able to teach you, because I'm certainly no expert here. But motor on axle means that instead of drive shafts like a typical truck would have and a single motor in the center, there are 2 motors, one on each axle, that individually control that axle's rotation. This also introduces a whole new level of expertise that is required to run these trucks, because instead of just focusing on driving and picking the right line and steering yourself there, you're also focused on the dynamic of changing the speed of each wheel. This means that there's a lot more capability in these trucks to do some very interesting things, similarly to what a full-size buggy could do with a rear burn, a front burn, cutting brakes on each individual wheel potentially. That might not be the case. But there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with MOAs that you can't do with a normal truck. So I'm really excited to start looking at these runs. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the first one here. All right, first up, without any sort of hesitation there, just jumping right into the run, we have Preston A from down in southern Utah. He is actually a bit new, a bit novice to the MOA scene, but that didn't stop him from clenching a spot in the top 5 for this year's MOA finals. So let's take a look at Preston's run here and see how he stacks up against some of the other more experienced competitors that are in this final series here. As you can see, the MOAs, they certainly look a lot different than your typical Class 1, Class 2, or even Class 3 trucks. There's a bunch more tire than there is anything else, and that's kind of the name of the game here, right? We don't want to be catching on anything. We want the body to be as small as possible. Depending on where you're competing, there are some different regulations for the body styling and dimensions, but in the North vs. South series, it's pretty fast and loose. Most MOAs that you're going to see out there, regardless of the type of body, are going to be allowed in the North vs. South series. There's in every class, there's not a whole lot of stipulations in terms of what's necessary to compete. You can see here the beginning of Preston really utilizing the different wheel speeds and the independent drive from the front and rear. And when I say independent drive, that very simply just means that he can control the front and the rear separately, so he can do some fun stuff like speed up the front, slow down the rear, completely stop the front and drag the rear around, which he was trying to do there to get through that gate, and it did end up working out for him, although it seemed like what really ended up working out for him was getting that front tire up against that face on the passenger side, and then kind of using that front steering to shift that rear, that ass end, in towards the wall. That ended up working out fairly well for him, so he didn't really have to rely too much on wheel speed there. And again, as a novice driver, there's a lot to consider when you're talking about changing your wheel speeds and trying to do front and rear burns. It's a whole nother dynamic that if you're not used to it as a driver, it can be very difficult, and you can end up getting yourself yourself into a pinch, especially under a competition level of stress, where you're just more prone to make mistakes, particularly if you're not well practiced in something. But doing well so far. He's come through, he got that bonus on the low end, hasn't had much problem with the course so far, and this may start to change right here. If this course looks familiar to you guys, good memory. You've been watching a few Class 3 runs that actually ran through this course the other direction. Now we are running this course in reverse as the MOA final run. So that's just a fun little fact for you. If this looks like a familiar course or familiar obstacles, you probably haven't seen an MOA truck run through here yet because I haven't posted any of that, but you probably do remember seeing some Class 3 trucks run the opposite direction. In those Class 3 runs, we saw a lot of trucks struggle with that obstacle that just screwed up Preston there, but running it in reverse from the top down to the bottom is even more difficult. So definitely giving these MOAs a run for their money and challenging them to the best of their abilities. Unfortunately, that didn't play out very well for Preston. As he was coming down, he just got completely unsettled. Didn't use wheel speed quite correctly there. You got to really, again, you got to really think about it. As you're coming down something, as you're descending, it's going to be a different dynamic than most of the time when you're trying to ascend obstacles, and you really got to think about how you play with this weight of the MOAs. They're very unstable if you don't kind of get them in the right spot or use the momentum of those axles, those independently driven axles, in the correct way, right? You can very easily throw yourself up and over if you're way too into overdrive or way too into underdrive. In certain circumstances, that's actually going to end up hurting you. Coming up to this boundary line here, that again, another one where you really have to focus on your wheel speed and your weight placement there to ensure that MOA isn't going to flip onto its lid, which is exactly what happened, unfortunately costing Preston another 10 points because those boundary lines are treated just like gates. But we're coming up on the end here, and he's still at just a +7, which is actually a really spectacular score, but we'll see how it stacks up against the rest of the competitors. But so far, looking so good for MOAs on this track. It's certainly doable, and let's see if maybe anyone is going to be able to clean this run. There are certainly some difficult obstacles through here, and I'm impressed with Preston's driving, particularly considering how green of a driver he is in these MOA rigs. Ending up with a +7 and a 5:21.21, a very respectable score and a very respectable time given the quality or the difficulty of these obstacles. I hope you guys don't mind. I really tried to utilize this run as a way to explain a lot of MOA concepts to you, or to try to get you just a little bit more familiar with MOA in general, given my limited knowledge on MOA. I don't own an MOA rig, although every time I see them run, it looks really, really fun. There's definitely an interesting and different dynamic with MOAs that you just don't get in any other type of truck, which is why I'm so excited to share these runs with you guys. Again, even though these trucks are so different than the trucks that I typically run, I still feel as though I'm very able to take a lot of the principles or concepts in terms of the way that the truck handles different obstacles, the way that weight changes things, right? If you shift weight in one direction or the other, on an MOA, everything's so visible. You can see the links, you can see them moving independently. There's no body to get in the way of seeing what's happening with the suspension, the links. You can see exactly what the tires are doing, how they're shifting, how they're being impacted. And all of this, I think, allows us to learn a lot more watching MOAs about off-road conditions and off-road reactions by the truck than you maybe could even with a Class 1 or Class 2, where you've got a lot of body covering things up and you can't quite see as much of what the truck is actually doing. So that's why I really enjoy these runs, and I hope that you guys also enjoyed these. I hope that you were able to learn something like I was, or if not, I hope it was at least entertaining for you. If it was, go ahead and give me a like. Let me know that I'm doing something right with these MOA runs. We have 4 more of the top 5 runs to watch, but Preston definitely setting a great precedent here for us to start with. I'm excited to watch the other runs as well and see how everyone stacks up against this more green driver. But if you enjoy it, go ahead and subscribe for more content like this every single week. week, typically on Fridays. But until that next upload, I hope that you guys have a fantastic week. I hope that you guys get some scale trailing or some hard lines done at least, maybe some FPV droning, maybe some surrounding, or maybe something else. And if it is something else, let me know in the comment section down below. I want to know what you guys are up to. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.